years, even though the government has just promised to vastly increase the amount of public money made available to remove dangerous cladding from high-rise flats. Research shared with you in yours suggests it will take 3 years for some blocks even to get a proper safety inspection. Work to remove and replace building materials that are a fire risk and to put right building defects will take even longer. Our reporter Melanie Abbott can tell us more. Mel, this estimate then that it will take years, where's it come from?
Yeah, it's come from research commissioned by the National Housing Federation, which represents housing associations, and they provide social housing, but to help fund it, they also build homes to sell and to offer in part ownership as affordable housing. The biggest 23 housing associations, which between them have 500,000 flats, have spent more than £300 million on cladding and related fire safety. And that's just dealing with the most dangerous buildings first.
So they say that yesterday's announcement won't be the end of it.
No, I think far from it. The problem is there aren't enough people to do the specialist safety inspections needed on these flats or to fix the problems that those inspections uncover. People also say that this is creating a two-tier system, this announcement of new funding, because the work's going to be fully funded by the government for higher buildings, but for lower ones, the freeholder's going to have to take out a loan, which can then be charged back to individual flat owners, albeit at a maximum of £50 a month. For people like Victor Kaufman-Bartfield, it's not going to solve his problems anytime soon. He has a 2-bedroom flat which is in North London, and it was built by a housing association. It's brick, but even so, his sale fell through last year when the lender asked for this safety form to show that the walls were safed.
The housing association had no plans to be able to offer the form. I literally tried to move heaven and earth to get some sort of alternative. I even looked into paying for this review myself. I would have had to have paid a company £300 to provide a quote for work which would probably have been about £50,000. Legally, I don't think I could have done because the freeholder owns the building. I can't instruct someone to start drilling holes in the building. I live in quite a unique development, so my neighbours live in the private section of the block. Literally, we share the same balcony, and they managed with collective action to get the form signed off. Half of our block has sellable flats and half of us have unsellable flats.
What's happened then with your plans?
We urgently had to look for a rental property and have had to rent out the flat.
What does Victor's Housing Association say, Mel?
It's the Islington and Shoreditch Housing Association, which has 136 blocks of flats. It's doing checks on more than 40 of them. Ruth Davison is its chief executive.
We've been prioritising our taller buildings above 18 metres. We fully intend to do one, and we fully intend to do one soon. But I want to do it once, and I want to do it properly. And I want to give people the absolute assurance that when we've carried out the test, put right anything that needs to be put right, that house, that home is fit for the future. But this is not just about cladding. It's a building safety issue. And there is a limited number of fire experts who can do this work in the country. There's about 300. Some of them actually shielding at the moment because of COVID. And I think the important thing to say is it might take us 2 or 3 years to intrusively survey to find out what's wrong, if there is anything wrong with these smaller buildings, but it could take us much longer to put them right. So all these buildings were signed off as being safe by qualified and competent people as conforming to the regulatory standards at the time. And when we've looked at them, they're not safe. And in some cases, we have quotes for buildings which are almost as costly as the building itself.
Quotes to put the buildings right that are as high as the costs of actually building those blocks in the first place. People will be astounded to hear that. How much money are we talking about for that particular building?
Millions of pounds.
Can you tell us which developer it is?
No. The reason that I'm not giving you a really straight answer on this is that we have not discussed costs with some of our leaseholders because we don't want to terrify them and we're trying to find a way through.
That is astounding, Mel. What does the building industry say?
It really is, isn't it? Now, it's interesting because the building industry is going to have to foot some of this bill. There's going to be a levy on new planning applications for high-rise buildings, and there'll be a new tax on residential property developers, and that should raise £2 billion over the next decade. Now, the industry says that this tax should be equitable, and the Home Builders Federation told me that homes were built to the building regulations at the time and were approved by independent inspectors.
So when might it all be sorted?
Yeah, if only we knew, eh? The safety checks themselves, when you can get one, are often revealing those big problems that Ruth Davison referred to there. And it's just going to take a long time to do the inspections and then to carry out the work. Kate Henderson is the chief executive of the National Housing Federation. She says that housing associations estimate that the total bill for them is going to be £10 billion.
At the National Housing Federation, we're also really concerned about the impact of building safety on social renters, so other people living in social rented homes in buildings that need remediation, because so far there's been no funding for social housing. And as not-for-profit housing associations, we estimate that these works are going to cost in excess of £10 billion. So money is going to be diverted away from providing services to people on lower incomes, but also from building much needed social housing.
The shortage of specialist companies to really do this quite technical work is becoming quite acute. Dorian Lawrence has been in the field for 32 years and he runs Facade Remedial Consultants.
It's not just about the qualifications, it's also about the experience in tower block safety, identification of materials, and then also the fire engineering in relation to how the building has been constructed. So when we're checking a building, we must check for the cladding, the insulation, the compartmentation, along with the inner wall. It takes a lot of knowledge and skill, first of all, to be able to get to the correct areas. And it's no good just looking at those elements at the ground floor. We look at high level, mid-range and at low level to do a proper identification of those products and how they've been installed.
Every building will, of course, be different, but on average, how long might checks take for a building over 18 metres with maybe 100 flats in it?
Depending on how it's accessed through the cherry picker or a mobile elevated working platform, or we may abseil it, those checks would take possibly 3 to 4 days on site. Then the report has to be written, and then we have to identify all of the materials and the breaches in building regulations, and then workmanship issues as well, to find out what needs to be rectified to make the building safe.
And what does the government have to say about it all, Mel?
We've asked numerous times for any housing minister to come onto the programme. No one was available. We were sent a statement saying that yesterday's announcement was comprehensive and will restore confidence to this part of the housing market. And the government is introducing a state-backed insurance schemes for surveyors doing the external wall safety checks to try to encourage more to begin doing this kind of work.
Melanie Abbott, thank you.